Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this week's Motor Trade Radio podcast in association with eBay Motors Group. It is Saturday, the 23rd of May, and you're joined by myself, Philip Nothard.
And me, Curtis Hutchinson. So, Phil, we're on episode 351.
Yes, yeah. Flying through these, aren't we?
Well, we are, yeah.
Think about what that next sort of milestone is going to be for the podcast. But we've certainly been busy, haven't we, over recent weeks as we enter the 10th week of lockdown. Can you believe that already?
Yes.
It feels like longer.
It's starting to feel like a long time now. And 10th week. And only this week on Monday, dealerships started to reopen in Ireland, so that's the nearest to the UK so far. And this week we'll pick up on the story, but we've got the SMMT calling for showrooms to open in the UK sooner than the 1st of June. That's they've put together an argument as to why waiting to the 1st of June is just going to cause extra hassle across the sector, really.
Yeah, it's difficult, really, isn't it, as whether you need a date in time as a start point for everybody, or do we just try and get things going? And I think we'll mention it, but we've got the interview at the end of this show, and if you didn't catch it this week, then please stay tuned. And we've got David Peel, who's the UK managing director of Peugeot, and he's talking about obviously preparing the brand and the network for reopening. And he actually, it talks a lot of sense in terms of, we have the conversation about garden centres opening but not car dealerships, and we kind of had a bit of a laugh that garden centres probably in many cases are a busier environment than car dealerships have been for a very long time at any sort of weekend in experience. But he talks about obviously how they're looking at how they need to sort of stimulus the package for starting the market, and obviously around there the click and collect and what Peugeot have been doing since sort of 2017 with their online proposition. But very good interview there, and very truthful.
very, very open as well. I mean, David gave us a lot of detail on what's been going on behind the scenes between Peugeot and the dealer network, and working closely with the dealer council to prep everything and make sure everything's in place for when showrooms do open. So do stick around for that one.
And Andy reveals a bit of an exclusive as well, doesn't he, on the
interview? We teased an exclusive out of him, so you've got to listen to find out what the exclusive is.
And before we get onto the headlines, we've got to say that it is the bank holiday, the weekend, just in case anybody days are just blurring into each other at the minute. So it is Saturday, it is a bank holiday Monday, if you are listening this morning. But let's not forget, this week has been Mental Health Awareness Week. A lot of people have been doing things for Ben, the automotive charity. So they've got a hashtag running, which is the Hats On for Ben, with a numeric number 4, and you can text HATS HATS to 70480 to donate. And if you look on social media, there's a lot of obviously selfies and nominations and things like this going on across the social media channels at the minute, raising lots of money for Ben. So let's not forget, it's a poignant time to be thinking about this Mental Health Awareness Week in lockdown as we go through it. So let's do our little bit for that one.
Yeah, absolutely right. So headlines this week, we've already mentioned the SMMT one, which is based around a campaign they've started called 10 Reasons to Unlock Auto. We've got an update from Pendragon. They've released their Q1 interims and shed some light on how the lockdown has impacted their Q1, because it ends in March. So obviously a big impact there. We've got an interesting piece from Vivendi predicting a shift away from showroom interaction after the lockdown. We've also got an update from Motorpoint, because they've started home deliveries and contactless collections. And another update, this is on a story we've covered a few times over the last month or so, and it's about the MOT extensions. So there's an update there on what the government's current thinking is. And we've also got an obituary for Angus McKinnon, who sadly died recently. So we'll say a few words about him at the end of the show.
Yeah, so we'll move on to this first one. Like you say, we've just been talking a little bit about that one, but it's on AM Online. This is that calls on government to open car showrooms and earn taxes, and this is coming from the SMMT. That, as you say, Curtis, that they are calling that not to wait until the 1st of June to open, and as you say, Ireland has already started to open up, and my cause from the SMMT is obviously he's come with 4 reasons to unlock auto campaign, and he sort of put this to the government as to why they should consider letting car showrooms open up sooner rather than later. And I mean, we're only a week away, really, but yeah. I think he's obviously his view is that the sooner we open, the sooner activity can start on a larger scale and start building orders and getting stimulus back into the automotive sector.
Yeah, and I know you love figures, and this story is rich with figures. So the SMMT calculate there's currently 4,900 franchised showrooms in the UK. And I guess more interestingly, they've worked out what the annual tax income for the government from things like VAT and VED is. And they estimate that it's worth £5.4 billion. And with the lockdown, which, as we said at the top of the show, is now coming up for its 10th week, that will actually reduce by 23%. And they say that every additional day of closure is costing the government £20 million.
Yeah, and I mean, they're talking obviously about the furloughing across the retail sectors, 590,000 workers under the job retention scheme, and which has provided a lifeline to many during the crisis. But it's obviously costing an estimated 41 million a day to keep that level of workers on the furlough scheme. So really, it's quite interesting when you get into the economic data around this, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
The return to the government and how productive the retail sector is, but actually how productive and how much it does put into the government taxes from the automotive sector through the various channels. But we know you love your top 10, so do you want to go through a brief top 10 reasons to unlock UK auto is the hashtag?
Yeah, you know what, I'm going to rattle through these. So number 1 is safe places. Number 2, retailers are ready. Number 3, supporting jobs. So these are across the UK manufacturing and retailing sector. Number 4, boosting the economy. Number 5, helping people back to work safely. Number 6, reducing the burden on government. Number 7, customer demand. That's an interesting one because we know there's a lot of pent-up demand out there. Number 8 is accelerating fleet renewal. Number 9, supporting UK manufacturing. And 10, technology and choice. Now, they're all sound reasons, totally agree with the SMMT, but my view is that I think they're a bit late to the table on this one. We could have done with this campaign maybe 1 or 2 weeks ago, because everyone is now focused on the 1st of June. And that's what dealers are working towards, and that's what manufacturers are working towards as well. So, I mean, like you said, is pulling it forward by a week going to make a huge difference?
It's difficult, isn't it? I mean, there's probably retail dealers, depending on the size, already starting to do some kind of business. And one of the stories we get to towards the end on today's show is a retail dealer that is out there and being active. We know there are others in terms of working on that home delivery and the click and collect world. Not quite an open showroom scenario, I appreciate that, but there is business being done. And as you say, Curtis, is it for the sake of a week, everybody's working now. They're putting all the processes in place, all the guidance and all the protocols in place, making sure that they're liaising with all the staff that are furloughed, who they need to bring back, when they need to bring them back into the business, and that's your front end staff and your back office staff and everything else. So there's a lot of, depending on the size of the business, there's a lot of things to get in order. Because you've got we've still got the 3 week furlough situation in place.
Yes.
So we have to liaise very carefully with the colleagues and staff across the sector. So again, a difficult one, but absolutely. I mean, head over to AM Online. Very, very compelling reasons, as there is a bit of detail behind each of those 10 reasons to unlock UK Auto. So have a look at them, and some interesting stats there, and actually it does illustrate how big the automotive sector is to the UK economy in terms of revenue and income into it. So that's it does highlight the pure size of the business that we do operate within.
Yeah, and it's very much a sort of wake up call to the government. This is the size of the industry, and this is what you're losing at the moment. So interesting one there. So next headline is also from AM, and it's Pendragon calculates COVID-19 cost it £10 million in profits. So these are Q1 interims from Pendragon, and they make for interesting reading because it's well documented that the last couple of years have been tough for Pendragon. There's obviously been change of leadership there, and they did have problems, well documented on the used car front, but they were turning a corner. So Q1, the beginning of Q1, January and February, they report in the interims were very encouraging, and March actually got off to a very strong start, and then of course lockdown happened. So in terms of the figures, underlying operating profits across the franchise motor divisions, that's Evans, Halshaw and Stratstone, was 4.4 million, and that was a decline of 4.7 million against Q1 2019. And following up on the car store division, so the used car supermarkets, which has really been the focus for the revamp in the group. It was radically rationalised throughout 2019. And consequently, it saw reduced operating losses from 7 million in Q1 2019 to 1 million in Q1 2020, and an improved gross margin from 7.4 to 8%. So turning a corner there on the used car front. So it just shows that they were heading in the right direction.
Yeah, and they've estimated, haven't they, that they're saying that the overall slowdown in Q1 trading due to the impact of COVID-19 as the entire underlying profit before tax by about 10 million. It said it has recorded a Q1 loss of tax of 2.3 million for the quarter. So again, it's sort of demonstrating one, like you say, turning the corner, a new head there, taking it in a new direction, and then get hit by the COVID-19, and it's just a shame, isn't it? As we came into the year at such a strong rate across the sector, and obviously 23rd of March is the day that it slowed very quickly. It came to an abrupt stop, unfortunately.
Yeah, and what I found particularly interesting in this story was they do actually shed light on trading since the beginning of April. So since then, since the lockdown, Pendragon has taken 3,610 customer orders online or by phone, and it's completed 1,187 deliveries to buyers' homes. So it just shows that they have remained active throughout this period.
Yeah, and that's referring to the story earlier, isn't it? That there has been activity. I mean, you've got to be careful that we don't assume that there has been no activity. There has been little bits of activity, albeit down, and we'll soon be waiting for the May results for the new car registrations, which will no doubt be an interesting reading once again when we get those eventually through. But Again, there has been activity, there has been something taking place, and I think the minute we can open up and start trading on a wider scale and a bit more open, then the better it will be for everybody.
Yeah.
Which leads us on to the next one, really, going over to motortrader.com, and actually this is the what will happen post lockdown.
Yes.
And this is from iVendi, and obviously they're talking around what from a predicts a shift away from showroom interaction post lockdown, which is a view that I think many people are taking at the minute as to that acceleration of that digital proposition that we've obviously spoken about a number of times on the podcasts.
Yeah, and they make the point, and it's been well made by others, that customers will be wary of venturing into showrooms. And you know what? I actually went into a showroom this week because my car was due a service, which meant that I had to go into the showroom, and it was just the after sales desks that were open. But it was very eerie. It was a good sized showroom. Everything's taped off, and there's footprints on the floor, and you wait in line. I mean, there was only two customers, me and another chap having his car serviced, but it was very, very eerie. It was a very strange feeling.
I can imagine. I mean, my car's probably due an MOT and a service, but to be fair, I don't think I'm going anywhere anytime soon. So it can stay there. We are talking about MOT shortly, interestingly enough, but mine is overdue an MOT. And when I got in it the other day, when I eventually found where I'd parked it 2 months ago, it came up to tell me it was now due a service. So it's ticked over to a service on time rather than mileage, because it's not moved in the 10 weeks or the nearly 10 weeks of lockdown at the minute.
Yeah, and interesting comment here from James Tew, that there is every reason to believe that click and collect and home delivery will be the dominant methods of trading as we emerge from lockdown, and that showrooms will become more like fulfillment centres where vehicles are processed. There will be some face-to-face vehicle retail, but it will probably be relatively limited. So that's James Tew's view.
Yeah, and they obviously talk about that paradigm shift of the dealers shift to in the remarketing sector as well. Around that cars are sold online instead of physical auctions, and there's I know Mannheim, us at Mannheim, I mean we're obviously online through the auctions that we've set up online, and that's where we are at the minute, because moving back to a physical auction in the volumes of people that would need to come onto site and the staff that you would need to serve them is a slightly different proposition than some other businesses at the minute.
Yeah, and the story actually highlights some comments from Odessa, who are picking up on that point that the SMMT made about defleeting. There are high levels of defleet vehicles waiting to be sold, and selling them online is the quickest, the most efficient way of doing them at the moment, just to get them into the wholesale market, and then dealers can start restocking.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously in recent weeks, CAP-HPI have obviously started to review data as the other guides have done the same. Activity is coming through. Early signs of activity has been positive. I think it's since the auctions and the remarketing opened up a little bit more online, then it's been a positive response at the minute. There is demand there is appetite there from the buyer sector to order get those vehicles. So it's all positive. There's obviously all the constraints in place and restrictions in place in terms of handing over and collecting and things like that, but I think early signs is extremely positive, both for cars and LCV. Are performing very well in the wholesale market at the minute. So great news so far, should we say.
Yep. So you're listening to the Motor Trade Radio podcast in association with eBay Motors Group, the only weekly podcast serving the car retailing sector, and available online at motortraderadio.com and by subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Deezer, and SoundCloud.
So as we mentioned earlier, I mean, we sort of touched on the point a little bit, but going car dealer have been very active with their news stories recently, and the headline is actually car supermarket motor point starts up again with home deliveries and contactless collections. So sort of intimating what we've been talking about earlier, that it's starting to happen now. These predominantly are a retail showroom business, so not like some of the others that are purely an online operation that have continued some sort of activity throughout lockdown. So this is obviously one of the larger AM100 supermarkets, and they're up and running with trading, haven't they? And sort of taking up some quite a few bit of business at the minute, I think, from what the signs are so far.
Yeah, and this is across all 13 sites, and this actually came from a statement to the stock exchange, because Motorpoint is, of course, listed. And within the statement, it says both home delivery and click and collect allow our customers to complete an entirely contactless purchase process, including choosing their new car, agreeing parts exchange valuations, arranging finance, and either collecting their new vehicle from any of our retail locations or taking delivery at home with collection of any part exchanged. So, that's all in place now. And you know what's quite interesting about this is that we were obviously talking to David Billsborough, the owner of Cheshire Cars, on last week's podcast, and this is a model that he's been operating for 10 years.
Yeah, it's not new, is it? But yeah.
It's not new. And there is an acceleration here, because a lot of these big businesses are rolling out click and collect, click and deliver. And, it can be done, as David's proved the last 10 years.
I suppose the fundamental difference is a single owner doing it, and obviously doing it in scale through a large group. And I think that's the bit that is now starting to be demonstrated through what this has done. And as you say, it's accelerating what people have been wanting to do or needed to do in some cases for some time. So it will be, I mean, you and I will be watching this very closely, and as we come out of lockdown and we enter this, what people are saying, the new norm of activity, as to what impact has this actually had in terms of this whole digital proposition, e-commerce acceleration across the relationship between the OEM, the dealer, and obviously the consumer. So it'll be very, very, very interesting to watch this roll out as we move forward.
Yeah, and it goes back to your point about garden centres. Dealers, whether they be car supermarkets, franchise dealerships, or independents, in the future, they shouldn't get hung up about footfall, because if the activity is happening online, if orders are coming in online, then that is the new normal.
Yeah. It's just that interaction of the handover or collection that needs to be seamless now. And we know that there's people like Robert Forrester from Virtue and others that have now, he's launched his digital full finance sign-off and signature system that they've got in place now, and others. And the interview at the end that we've got there with David Peel from Peugeot, talk about their whole end-to-end proposition in that digital space. So it kind of shows that it can be done. There is systems there that can be done, and the consumers are willing to do it. Is the key with some of this. So, like I say, it'd be interesting, this one. So, sticking with car dealer, and it's quite an interesting one, this one, because we have talked about this a couple of times previously on the show around the MOT extension that was put in place for 6 months, and then obviously it was then causing a few questions whether it should maintain, should it be in place, should the government change it, was 6 months the right time extension to give to it or not. And now he's saying that government confirmed 6-month extension could be cancelled at any time as industry calls for it to be ended now. So a bit of an exclusive here, I believe, from Car Dealer.
Yes, yeah. Hats off to James Baggott, because he's actually spoken to a government source who's confirmed that the original legislation was effectively designed to be flexible, so that it could run longer than it was needed without the need for more legislation to be passed. So the nominal length of the legislation is from March 20th this year to March 29th next year. But if they decide that it's no longer needed, it can be ended without introducing additional legislation. So they've got that flexibility there. And I suspect that's exactly what's going to happen over the coming weeks, if not months. I think we'll have an update from the government about MOT and the status of that 6-month exemption.
It is again, it comes back to the first story in terms of, with the SMMT there about that income, that revenue into the industry. And if you've got people that are just thinking, you know what, I've got 6 months with my car, it doesn't really matter. And you've got garages now that can operate, can MOT those vehicles, and can start to generate some revenue for themselves and to put back into the economy, then is it right that actually let it go ahead, remove that 6 month, although I need to think about it for myself as well. Bear in mind, I've got a car outside currently out of MOT.
I think you need to sort yours.
I need to do something on that one, yeah. But I think it's interesting because we were talking before the show that in Ireland it's a 12-month in Northern Ireland, and they've maintained that from what I understand so far, that they put a 1 year extension into their MOTs over in Northern Ireland. So that's a long time.
I can't quite get my head around why, why that's needed in Northern Ireland. So it'll be interesting to see if they review that as well.
Yeah, I mean, it could, like I say, it could change, couldn't it? I mean, we know that these things are evolving. We know that there's people say that the government's reacting to things on the hoof, but it is that kind of environment at the minute, isn't it? That they are being fluid in what they're doing. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see, but you don't know what by the time you're listening to this podcast, or by the time we get to Tuesday, things could have changed with particularly on the MOT situation, couldn't they?
Yeah, and our last story this week is also from car dealer, and the headline is independent car dealer Angus McKinnon has died aged 70. So sad story here, and Angus will be known to many listeners. So he founded his own business in Uttoxeter back in 1975, and there's I do urge you to go over and have a look at the story because there's some interesting background. So he launched it by renting a single bay garage next to a petrol station, and he actually grew that into a thriving used car dealership, which is currently big enough to display over 100 vehicles. And that single bay garage is now a fully accredited Bosch service centre, with multiple ramps. And I guess the sort of crowning glory is that the business was awarded Auto Trader's Retailer of the Year award only last year. So, that really did vindicate all the hard work that Angus and his family have put in over the years. We were contacted by Julian Stockton, who's the sales director of Angus McKinnon, and he did tell us that there's been a dedicated memorial page posted on the company's website. And in fact, the funeral, which happened on Friday, was streamed live. And Julian said, had the funeral taken place in normal circumstances, the town would have come to a standstill. So that's very much testament to Angus's standing in the local community there.
Yeah, and we gave him a shout out recently, didn't we, on some of the work that we're doing for the NHS and as a business as well. And Julian had kindly sent that in to us to give a shout out to the business for some of the charity work that they were doing as well, weren't they?
Yes, that's only 2 or 3 weeks ago. So, a very popular business across Derby, Burton-upon-Trent, Stoke-on-Trent, Loughborough, and Leicester. So, sad news there.
It is, and some kind words from Umesh Samani, who obviously we've had a guest on the show numerous times, who's the chairman of the IMDA, but obviously he's also got specialist cars down in Stoke, and saying that he was a legend who will be sorely missed, and that Angus was a pillar of the community who was well respected and showed others that hard work and passion to be the best is in the industry can be achieved, and like you say, that was demonstrated in the award that they won as well recently. So sadly missed, and it's not good to see these people leave the industry and pass, is it? So kind words there from Umish to Angus.
Yeah, and that's pretty much it for the headlines this week.
Yeah. So short week next week, 4 days after the bank holiday. So you don't need to go to work on Monday. It's a bank holiday. Oh no, you're probably staying indoors.
Stay at home.
Stay indoors.
Stay at home. Yes.
Yes. But thanks again for all the support. Some cracking interviews that we've had on the show so far in the period of lockdown, as say now entering the 10th week, aren't we, Curtis? But interesting times.
Yeah, 10th week. Not that we're counting.
Not at all.
No.
Not like we like our numbers.
Well, that's it for this week. You've been listening to the Motor Trade Radio podcast, brought to you in association with eBay Motors Group. Many thanks for listening. Do join Philip and I again next weekend, and do look out for the latest in our series of special interviews with industry leaders over the course of the coming week. All that's left is to say, do stay tuned in for our exclusive interview with David Pill, UK Managing Director of Peugeot. He's got some great insight into what's been happening during lockdown and his work with the dealer network. So until next week, it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from him. Hello and welcome from me, Philip Nothard, and Curtis Hutchinson to the special Motor Trade Radio podcast brought to you in association with eBay Motors Group. So many thanks again for joining us for this in the 10th in our series of special interviews themed around sharing best practices as car retailers manage their way through the COVID-19 crisis. Previous interviews with people such as Sittner's Group, Darren Edwards, Virtue Motors, Robert Forrester, the IMDA's Umesh Samani, and Volvo UK's MD, Chris Elverforce, and the last week's chat with David Billsborough from Cheshire Cars are also available to stream on the online motortraderadio.com, Spotify, Apple and Google Podcasts.
So today we're delighted to welcome David Pill, Managing Director of Peugeot Motor Company. David's been at the helm of Peugeot since 2016, before which he ran Robinson Day and the PSA Retail Group. So for an OEM boss, David has a unique perspective on car retailing. So many thanks for joining us, David. And how's the lockdown going for you personally? It must be challenging running a car company from home.
Yeah, thank you, Curtis. Well, first, it is very different. And yes, it's certainly very challenging. We've been focusing on two priorities. Our first priority at Peugeot is safety first, putting our teams, retailers and customers, as paramount first priority for safe operating on everything we do. And clearly the second priority that we've been working on is the economical impact throughout our collaborative businesses to make sure that we restart the economy as soon as possible. So if I go back to that first priority of safety protocols, we have the benefit of being obviously part of a global group, and we have been learning quickly from countries that have experienced the pandemic before us. So we've had the benefit of that experience, to have the best levels of protocol for safety that we can implement with our network. So a lot of work has gone on that front. On the second element, obviously we need to support our retail network, and we've done that from the very start. So we've helped them managing their cost base, which is really important, and we've also helped them through the furloughing period and some of the different changes that have come from the government. Now, obviously, Peugeot, like everyone else, we've moved to working from home, maximising digital tools to continue to run our business. And I have to say, from a personal perspective, this has been a challenge. Changing the normal way of working to one of working in isolation has been, a shock to us all. But, I personally miss the personal interaction with the team, but I feel we've adapted well. We're communicating digitally, and it's already starting to feel much more efficient and effective. But today, I guess, with limited people at Peugeot, it really is all hands to the pump. We're all putting in long days, but it's worth it because we feel we've now prepared very well for the restart that we are now starting to experience.
And as part of that, I guess, like a lot of us, you're using Zoom or something similar a lot for your meetings.
Yeah, sure. You know, we're trying to use a lot of new digital tools, and it's proving, you know, that everybody has adapted really quickly. So yeah, for sure. You know, we've gone from using them now and again to relying on them every day, but making them very effective. Yeah. So it's we surprised ourselves, I guess, how quickly we've adapted.
Hi, David, and welcome to the show. It's been a pleasure having you on, obviously. So, so obviously, as a business, you know, we locked down on the 23rd of March, there and thereabouts, and obviously along with the rest of the country. In terms of operational, you know, with Peugeot and your retail dealer network, how did you manage that in terms of that process? And obviously, the state of play now, as we're sort of talking about the restriction lift and what's happening next.
Well, thanks, Phil. I guess the first point is, how long have you got? Because a lot has happened at Peugeot for sure. I think the first point I want to make is that, you know, for the last 4 years, we've worked very collaboratively with our dealer partners under a stronger together mantra. So we have a very close working relationship, and I think that's been key. For example, we've had twice weekly calls with our National Dealer Council, and that's been really important in keeping us close to the front line. We make sure that we send out weekly updates on all the key information to the network, and we have a once a week Friday midday call with all of the general managers from every site, with all the live actions from the week, with a live Q&A to be able to cascade that latest information. From a PSA group perspective, I think we've obviously seen huge benefits of pulling together the PSA brands in the UK, and we've worked collaboratively across sort of 23 different work streams, having daily meetings, sharing best practice and sharing the latest news. So that's really helped us make sure we pull all the latest information together in the most effective way possible. So our first actions at Peugeot was a support package, which we introduced really in the first week of the crisis back in March, which was really important. And that included supporting retailer cash flow. It included reducing the complexity of our standards and programs, and it was really well received from our network partners. We came out of the block so quickly. As Peugeot showrooms closed, obviously so did our plants, and that was to ensure the safety of all of our staff globally. And as we have announced recently, all of our plants are now ready with all of the safety protocols in place, and in fact some of them have already restarted, again ensuring the safety of our people is put first. But the remaining teams have definitely been working flat out, as I've said before, you know, planning a restart, and safety protocols from our European learnings has been absolutely forefront of everything we've done. So the first priority was to keep the Peugeot workshops open for essential workers, and about 50% of them have remained open throughout with skeleton staff, and our parts hubs have remained open as well to provide supply to those key workers that needed our service during this time. Secondly, we've been planning for safe delivery of our outstanding deliveries for March, but also throughout we've been providing the latest updates, as I said, on furloughing, and that included there was a confusion of the network on commission inclusion in the furloughing, so we gave them a lot of support on a daily basis with live government feedback on a daily basis to make sure that they could make the right decisions when it came to furloughing. I've said already we've got a very collaborative Peugeot retail relationship, and our dealer council relationship has allowed us to be really agile, where we've taken learnings from the front line, you know, on a live basis, which has again really helped us make decisions quickly. And then we got to a point where we implemented safe home deliveries for the undelivered March orders, as well as, of course, our online sales, which, more recently has developed into a click and collect for all of our remaining outstanding orders. And now, as we speak, all Peugeot sites have now implemented or in the process of implementing the robust PSA safety protocols to ensure that customers are safe and the retailer staff are safe. And they've now started communicating that to social media, so all of our customers can see that the experience they're going to get when we do reopen is, to the highest level. So the key message, I guess, from us is there's been a lot of hard work, there's been a lot of communication, collaboratively with the network, but Peugeot has restarted and we're ready to go.
And then, David, just picking up on a point you made there about March. I mean, obviously, as we know, the lockdown happened during the rollout of the new plate. How much work is there left to do to fulfil any outstanding 20 plate orders?
Well, thanks for the question first, Curtis. And yes, you're right. This pandemic could not have hit the auto industry in the UK at a worse time, being mid-March. As we know, within hours of lockdown, deliveries throughout the industry stopped virtually overnight. And that created, numerous different issues for us. But, the first thing we did at Peugeot was to make sure that we've been in regular contact with our customers, making sure that they're kept informed. We've been throughout the period working on some home delivery, and as I speak, cars continue to be delivered. But I guess the reality is that, the work at Peugeot is already done. We've put the graft in over the last 8 weeks, and we're ready. Network preparation has been ongoing throughout that period, and as I've said already, the Peugeot sites now have all the safety protocol implemented to ensure we can deliver those outstanding orders for March and April. And as we see it now, day by day, since Click and Collect was approved last week, we are seeing more and more cars being delivered. So in answer to your question, Curtis, the hard work's been done. We're now in the process of just delivering the remaining cars from March.
So do you believe that for yourself from a PSA perspective, obviously the 1st of June is the date that everybody's working to at the minute, and we know that it's subject to change. And as you mentioned earlier, for everybody's trying to react to government information as it comes out and relay it and convey it and understand it, and as you say, around the commissions and the furlough. But do you believe that the network is ready now for the 1st of June to sort of start handing over these outstanding deliveries and any orders that have been sort of taken throughout the lockdown?
Yeah, thanks, Phil. As I've already covered, I guess, quite a few of the items with regarding sort of the June the 1st opening, because we are already, well into the process of delivering, the majority of the cars that were outstanding from March and April. But I guess, the most important part of this is that, I think the Peugeot communication has been the key ingredient. We've made sure that we've been communicating with everybody on a regular basis to keep everybody up to speed. Now, a number of sites closed completely, and throughout the period, we've had as high as 90% of our retailers' teams being furloughed. So you can understand the challenges that will bring. We've been personally involved in talking to our retail national groups and regional groups to try and work together to make sure that we support them in their restart. But we've also been working really hard to be in contact with these sort of single private owner drivers, so that the same level of contact has come from the brand, regardless whether it's Robert Forrester and Virtue, or whether it's just a single owner driver, which we felt was key. We've also issued a digital restart guide earlier this month that includes all of the communications that we've passed out over the last sort of 8 or 9 weeks, which again we thought was important to make sure all of the comms were all in one place. And this covers 100% of all of our restart actions that required by Peugeot. We've also, as a brand, made sure that we've provided a supply of all PPE requirements to support the network, because, as you know, throughout this period, getting hold of PPE equipment has been challenging. So we have sourced it centrally and made sure that we provided that for our network to make sure everybody has access to it. And we've also, once we put the safety protocols in place, we've made sure that we've put in a walk the floor daily safety protocol check that the general manager will need to do, because we feel it's as important to ensure that the maintenance of these safety protocols is maintained as well as the implementation. So that's all in place and being communicated to everybody. We've also created a Peugeot Restart Guide as a training tool, which has also been issued to all of our furloughed network teams, because, again, we think it's really important that they have a sort of pre-return familiarisation and an understanding and even an acclimatisation of everything that's changed whilst they've been away, so that we don't get those restart hangovers, when the teams start to come back, as they are starting to now as we speak. We've also weighted our digital activity to communicate to all of our customers that we're ready. So we have online videos actually showing all of the safety protocols are in place to give customers the confidence. And we're ready, not just for June the 1st, but with processes and protocol that can be maintained for months to come. And we have the benefit as well, and you mentioned it earlier, Curtis, that I used to run our retail group, Robinson Day. So of course we're working very closely with those teams, and they're leading by example, because today all of their sites have reopened and they are ready for the restart. So once again, I'm absolutely confident that the 8 or 9 weeks of intense planning and hard work that we've put in is ready and is going to pay off, because this is the second or third time I've said it, but we really feel we're ready. And now we're reliant on the government to make sure that we have that green light to open showrooms as soon as possible.
Now, David, I seem to recall conversations with you, probably going back a couple of years now, about your online platform, about launching an online platform and offering click and collect. The platform's up and running, and I just wonder what role it's played in both facilitating those current orders that you were talking about, as well as future orders. And maybe you can shed a bit of light on what your expectation is in terms of what proportion will online sales take in the future, because as we've said, we're operating in a new normal now, and online seems to be the sort of direction of movement.
Yeah, sure. And thanks, Curtis. Another really good question. And as you said, at Peugeot, we were one of the first to have this end-to-end buy online platform that started in 2017. We definitely see digital as an integral part of the car buying process moving forward, and we feel it's hugely important that we develop a growing online presence. However, importantly, all of our online sales do get credited to the retailer chosen by the customer. And I think this is really important because the Peugeot network is also 100% supportive of our digital approach. So we're not doing anything outside of our relationship with the network. It's completely collaborative. Now, Peugeot Buy Online, just to be clear, it is end-to-end. So it gives you the opportunity to build a car, choose your finance package, get a guaranteed part exchange valuation, choose your retailer, choose home delivery or collection, pay a deposit, and then complete the sale, all unaided and online. And we have definitely seen the level of customer interaction, growing progressively since we started this back in 2017. Now, whilst the volumes of orders generated online are still modest, we know that a significant amount of the volumes of additional customers, have now adopted this digital blended approach, where they configure their next vehicle and finance package digitally from the comfort of their own home, and then physically visit their local retailer to see their new car in the metal, take the test drive, etc., before placing the order. We also have, as part of the Buy Online platform, it's supported by a team of dedicated concierge people who are available to sort of handhold customers as well throughout the process, whether that be via phone, email, or live chat, to make sure that people, if they want to have the complete online experience, they can get through that process, without having any sort of concerns. We are constantly improving our buy online experience for our customers. Last month, for example, we launched the exclusively for you offer, which is, a specific bespoke offer for the customer. And we have lots more sort of exciting updates planned in the coming weeks. But, no doubt a bigger proportion of our sales will come this way in the future. I look at it, give you an example. So, for example, 10 years ago, the vast majority of customers used the web to research their next holiday, but still then visited their local travel agent to complete the booking. If you fast forward to 2019, 47% of customers booked their holiday online. So, you can see it's quite clear how this is going to develop. And certainly, we put a lot of focus on making sure that our digital presence, is growing, as the years tick by.
And do you think the current COVID crisis will actually accelerate that movement to online?
Yeah, you mentioned it at the start of the question. There is definitely going to be a new normal. We've definitely seen more activity digitally whilst people are sort of at home and on furlough. So without a doubt, I think the whole world globally is going to see an acceleration into digital activity, whether that be working from home digitally or purchasing stuff online digitally. So yeah, without a doubt, I think this is going to certainly accelerate that sort of process.
Yeah, and I mean, you've covered obviously the click and collect service that obviously the dealers are now operating to, and I think, as you say, you were fairly early in terms of OEMs in that buy online proposition, that digital proposition, weren't you? And I think you obviously, do you feel that has really put you ahead of where you may have been without that online end-to-end proposition then in where you are today? Because it's some manufacturers, some OEMs aren't necessarily in that position, are they? And they haven't got that facility to be able to operate that way. Do you believe that's given you a good position throughout this?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, for sure. You can definitely see over the last few weeks that there are other sort of OEMs that have started sort of a reserve online or some form of, enhanced digital sort of experience for their customers. But, ours is end to end, and this is, as I said earlier, this is the ability to, we even value the part exchange online and stand by it even without seeing it. The customer can have their finance proposed and agreed online completely end to end. So without a doubt, we feel we have an advantage. But I guess another key element is that, today, 2020, Peugeot's strategy is the power of choice. Now, this primarily relates to choose your model, choose your powertrain, because we've moved to a position now where we can offer customers petrol, diesel, or full electric or plug-in hybrid in all of our models across the range. And this power of choice can also be used to describe the delivery options that customers can now select from. So, home delivery, which from April has now been free of charge, click and collect, as we just talked about, but we still have a percentage of customers who still prefer the traditional experience delivery from our retailers through their dedicated handover areas. And of course, all of the safety protocols are in place to ensure we can still do that. So, we've also added new digital handover guides that have been created to ensure that all customers opt into the home delivery or click and collect still receive that comprehensive explanation of their car with all of the various features, which is still really important. So we can respect the social distancing, but still give that customer, an introduction to their vehicle, which is really essential. However, I guess today the majority of customers are still opting for retailer collection, and it's important, I think, because most consumers they want the ease of looking and researching and maybe pushing the button online, but they still want that connection with their local retailer. They want to build a relation for future after sales requirements. That said, we still also have a number of customers who want that completely 360-degree true online experience with a car arriving outside their house. So there is a mix. We are learning, but we are certainly moving quicker in the direction of sort of digital and online than we were prior to COVID. But my opinion is that I still think that a balanced mix of what customers want will remain.
And one final question on the online service. Your new model launch pipeline is looking very healthy at the moment, and that includes vans, which is something we haven't spoken about. So I'm just wondering what role the platform will play in new model launches from 2020 onwards.
Okay, thanks, Curtis. And I guess that's a very timely question for us, as you just said, because 2020, is the year that Peugeot is launching 12 new models.
Yeah.
And that includes, our fabulous new E208, E2008 full electric vehicles and our 3008 508 plug-in hybrids. So it's a huge year for us. And our Peugeot Buy Online platform offers exactly the same functionality and availability for all of our vehicles. Our Peugeot customers can buy, all of our range through the online platform, so there is no difference, whether it's a new vehicle to market or whether it's a current one. So it's the same functionality across the range. Now, you specifically mentioned vans. We are, as we speak, extending our Buy Online to all LCV product, and you'll see that very shortly. So a simple answer, I guess, is that the Peugeot online offering today offers exactly the same range of models as you would get in our showrooms, and that's how we plan for it to continue.
Yeah, it sounds though we've got an exclusive there, David.
Yeah, maybe.
Just thinking obviously about the new car market, and obviously there's a lot of conversation taking place on this subject now, but does the UK automotive sector need a market stimulus to kickstart the new car market?
Okay, thanks, Phil. And again, a very topical question, I guess. I think I'd like to start very clearly by saying that, at Peugeot, we want to take responsibility for kickstarting the industry ourselves. Everything I've said already demonstrates that we are doing our very best to do just that. We want to stimulate the pent-up natural demand that we know is in the marketplace before we start talking of any type of stimulus packages. For the past 8 or 9 weeks, we have been doing exactly as I just said. We've been supporting key and essential workers with after-sales facilities open in a safe way. We've been delivering new vehicles to people's homes, and now we're delivering the remaining March and April orders, as I've just said, before the showrooms open, hopefully during the first or before. We also know that people won't want to use public transport after this sort of pandemic, and maybe they will look for a new car. So we see this as an opportunity. Excuse me. But we also know that the economic situation is going to have an impact as well. So the talk of any support could certainly, in our view, create a lag while customers then wait. If there's a lot of press speculation, and nobody can afford that in the current situation. So I think the industry needs to restart itself with the natural demand that's there. And then it needs to be reviewed when the industry has had the opportunity to do that, and then assess what's necessary. From a Peugeot perspective, though, our view is that any stimulus package needs to be focused around CO2, and not just ultra low emission vehicles, because today, as well as the sort of LEVs and plug-in hybrids, there are many very good internal combustion engines that still provide a very low emissions, and there's lots of those good vehicles in the marketplace. So our position would be that any stimulus package needs to be focused around CO2, and it will then encourage customers in the marketplace to go into low emission vehicles, which I think we all know is really important. And we'd also like to see a cap on that value, because we need to make sure that whatever stimulus is in place is there to help the people that need that help most.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very logical view in terms of that stimulus from elsewhere that could delay that kickstart, because, as you say, there's a view of pent-up demand, pent-up volume that's sat there, and you want to get going and as quickly as possible, and you don't want, like you say, consumers waiting for what may or may not come. And
Exactly.
I agree. Yeah, exactly. It's a good point made.
Thank you.
And finally, David, I mean, we were talking before we started recording that, that there's no template for any of us at the moment for what we're going through. So I'm just wondering what the biggest challenges have been for you in leading a car brand during the crisis, and what your hopes are for the sector.
Well, yes, as we talked about earlier, Curtis, for me, it's the speed and the scale that it hit us that was unprecedented. And, even though we could see it coming, across European countries, I think we were all taken by surprise at how quick it hit the UK. I think the important point is that, the impact on people and their safety has been paramount, for everything we do. And that has always been top of our priority list. One of the biggest challenges has been the unknown. We talked earlier, we've never experienced anything like this before, so there's no roadmap. But this is, I think, where, the Peugeot team, with their stronger together mantra with the network, really has that opportunity to sort of shine. And, every day, agility is now our favourite word. Our industry, as you know, has huge overheads and low margins. And therefore, we can't afford to stop. And we've definitely been focused on reducing, not only our cost base, but our network's cost base, and limiting any type of cash out during this period to protect our collaborative businesses. But I guess I really feel that, it feels as if every day we find solutions and we create plans, working really hard. And then, no more than a couple of days pass before something else changes and we have to go again. And, that's where we need to make sure we remain really, really agile. Now, I guess, certainly better clarity on government communications would have helped us as well, because that's taken time to understand and interpret exactly what those changes have meant. So that could have helped. But I also would like to say sort of, formally, that I think, we as an industry feel that the government has done a fabulous job with the furlough scheme, because without doubt that would have, that has saved many of our businesses, and
yes.
Without it, we'd have been in a much, much worse position. So in summary, I guess it's been a huge challenge, that the Peugeot team and PSA have supported each other really strongly throughout this, and we're confident that we're ready to go again in a very safe and responsible way. So my final point, I guess, to your question is, what are my hopes for the sector? I think it's simple, that the government approves showroom reopenings as soon as possible. That is key, because, if we can make factories safe for thousands of people, as we have done and demonstrated, there should be no reason for us not to deliver that protocol through open, expansive showrooms. And if estate agents and garden centres can do it, then why not us? Yeah. So, in conclusion, I guess we are ready. And certainly for the UK economy, the auto industry needs the wheels turning again as soon as possible.
So, I mean, great insight and perfect observations there, as you say. I mean, we wish the showrooms were as busy as some of the garden centres on a hot sunny bank holiday weekend, don't we, sometimes? But
exactly.
I think those days are long gone, where we've got people queuing up outside a car showroom and worried about social distancing too much. But I fully agree. But I mean, it's been a pleasure, David, and thanks very much for coming on. And for me, wish you all the best, and let's hope we get a speedy recovery and back to some sort of new normality of trading. So again, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for that, and Curtis. It's been great to talk to you. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, no, many thanks for joining us, David, and good luck with the restart. Unfortunately, that's all for now. You've been listening to this special Motor Trade Radio podcast brought to you in association with eBay Motors Group. Please like and share on social media, as it's important during these times for the dealer community to work together and share experiences and best practices. Many thanks to you for listening and supporting the podcast. Philip and I will be back with the industry headlines on Saturday, but do watch out for more special podcast interviews as we work our way through this crisis. Until then, do stay safe and stay well.